recipe for great food is simple. Make it fresh. Wings to go in Greenville, where every order is a custom order made with fresh ingredients. Wings to go, 7818 Wesley Street in Greenville. Simply great wings.
Need a part for the right price? Look for that red and blue sign. Henley Auto Supply at 1510 Stonewall. Over 800,000 CarQuest parts to choose from. Domestic, European, and Asian parts. Henley Auto Supply at 903-455-1969. 455-1969. Henley Auto Supply has the right part to keep your vehicle running. And backed by the best hometown service. Henley Auto Supply. Great people, great products, great prices. Henley Auto Supply and CarQuest.
Regular session of the Greenville City Council to order. We certainly welcome you. Let the record reflect that all members are present except Ms. Washington. If you would, please stand and join me in the invocation offered by, would you be kind enough, Mr. Collins?
Heavenly Father, I thank you for your blessing on this city. I thank you for your word, which tells us about what wisdom is, and for your law, which tells us what is right. I ask for your hand to be on this council, that we would rely on you so that we can be wise and upright in our dealings, so that your will may be done on earth as it is in heaven. In the precious name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please note there are placeholders on the agenda for citizens to be heard and citizens to be heard on items that are not scheduled for public hearing or on the agenda, as well as an opportunity for citizens to speak on public testimony for items that are on the agenda, starting with 7A. If you'd like to appear before the council and speak, please present a citizen's comment card to the city secretary. So, are there citizens to be heard tonight?
Wayne Morris.
Okay.
Wayne Morris, 5600 Vale Street, Greenville, Texas. Good evening. It's always a pleasure to be here, and it gives me even more pleasure when I can come up here and say thank you. I'd like to thank Juice. I'd like to thank the city manager's office, press, and everybody else that we finally have upgraded new shiny lights that actually illuminate on Stonewall Street, south of Joe Ramsey going down. Probably a good year and a half ago, when we were still talking about, you know, the final plans for Stonewall, I had brought it up, and they said it'd be taken into consideration. And it's here, it's great. I've gotten a lot of feedback from people in the neighborhood, and it just shows how little things can make a big difference. Recently, I believe I mentioned it last month, we have the left-hand turn lane now at Terrell and Wesley Street. And some people might say, well, those are little things. But little things eventually add up to big things. And big things get bigger and bigger. So it's all a step at a time. Seems like we have a lot of plans in place. Things are coming together. And these lights are especially helpful now you know, that it's getting dark earlier, school's back in session. Before, with cars parked on the sides by the apartments across from Bowie, there were hazards in the morning. These new lights are fantastic, plus they're a lot more energy efficient than the older ones. Perhaps, you know, with Juice and the city working together, maybe we can upgrade all the rest of them in town. But this is a great first step, and I'd like to just thank everybody involved.
Thank you, Mr. Morris.
James Evans.
James Evans, 6410 Buena Vista Drive, Greenville, Texas. I looked around me a few seconds ago and I noticed two other of our planning and zoning members here, and they're pretty much regulars, and we usually have 4 at the council meetings. I want to invite y'all on behalf of P&Z. That's not an official request, but a personal request. I don't have the authority to say it for everybody, but I'll just say I believe the 2 people here would join in with me. The third Monday at 5:30 we meet. We'll meet here at the Civic Center. It's one thing I always did when I was on the council because it gives you such insight. The people on this P&Z committee are quality people. When the packets come out, we drive out and we look at the sites, we ask questions, and sometimes our meetings get pretty heated as far as the questions and things that take place. I would ask you again tonight to go back and consider it and put on a future agenda just as soon as possible. Again, the quality people that we've got, they deserve to be recognized as far as their decision. I would love to see y'all still consider put on the agenda to discuss and possibly pass, where it would take a supermajority to again override a P&Z vote. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Evans.
That's all.
Okay. We'll move to right on to public hearings, and tonight we're reviewing the budget, we're adopting the budget, and then we're adopting a tax rate. And Summer, would you like to explain there are 3 items on the agenda. Would you like to explain those briefly so for the audience? Or Talia's going to do that. I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. You'll see on the agenda there's 3 items. All of them are kind of tied together, but there's a certain order that it has to be done. This first item, 6A, is going to be the public hearing on the proposed budget as it was originally proposed, and then consideration and action on an ordinance adopting the budget as well as the fee schedule, the updated fee schedule that you saw as part of that. So this is a budget that is going to be starting October 1st, 2021 and ending September 30th, 2022. This is not where you adopt a tax rate. This is just only regarding the budget that was proposed.
Okay.
Is there any questions about that or the order?
Are there any questions about that? Okay. So I'll open the public hearing on item 6A. Would anyone like to speak on that item? 6A.
No, there are no.
Okay. I'll close the public hearing.
We've already completed citizens.
What is the pleasure of the council?
I'll move to approve the proposed 2021-2022 budget.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion to second, please vote. And it passes unanimously. Okay, item 6B.
Okay, so item 6B authorizes the ratification of the budget that you all just approved. That does raise more property taxes than the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget. Again, this is not setting a tax rate, and this item will do that in item 6C.
I'll open the public hearing on item 6B. Is there anyone like to speak? Or no one? If not, I'll close the public hearing. What is the pleasure of the council regarding this item? Are there any comments? Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the ratification of the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget.
Mr. Atkins moves. Is there a second?
I would second it.
Second. Okay, Mr. Thomas, please vote. And it passes unanimously. Item 6C, public hearing on the proposed tax rate.
Okay, so under item 6C, this will be a public hearing on the proposed tax rate. and consideration and action authorizing the enactment of an ordinance adopting a 2021 tax rate for this budget that was just ratified that will exceed the lower of the voter approval tax rate or the no new revenue tax rate and record the vote. So at this point, this is when you would make a motion as to the tax rate that you all would like to see
Okay.
in this fiscal year.
Okay, and I think the proposed tax rate is 58.9. So, and it may appear as 59 in your agenda, but are there any I'll open the public hearing. Are there any comments on the proposed tax rate?
Mayor Dreiling.
Okay. Mayor, come forward, please. We welcome you.
I know that you've all worked, Dave Dreiling, 6302 Villa Fontana, Greenville, Texas, 75402. I forget where I'm supposed to be there. I know that all of you have worked very hard.
Well, you can come up here and say it if you want to.
No, thanks, I've been up there. But I know you've all worked very hard for several months on trying to come up with a tax rate. You've done analysis, you've looked at it for 4 to 6 months, and you've worked hard on it, and I appreciate that. And what a lot of people don't recognize is this little bit of homework that you have is in a book that's about 200 pages. And I know that you all have worked on it, you've looked at it, you've read it, probably gone page by page for several times. And throughout this period of analysis, a lot of people have come up here and they say, we want better roads, fix this, we want more parks, we want city improvements, and oh, by the way, cut the taxes. Well, to do all of that, it takes money to do it. You can't just get everything and get it for free. What I would like to see in a tax rate from you folks is something that is needed to run and grow the city. I'm not going to try and tell you the rate because you've done the analysis. But for the police force, I want the police force to be there when I need them or when somebody else needs them. I don't want them to be hampered because they couldn't get equipment or training that they needed. I want the fire department to be there. If somebody's got a problem, we need to have them there. We need city services, and we need to have happy employees. That's how we run a city. That's how things ought to be done. So when you set the tax rate, don't cut the rate or set a rate that's below what you think it's going to take to do the job. You've worked hard, you've worked with the city manager, you've looked at the options that are available, and you've tried to assess what is the proper need. And I've gone through the process. I know how you say, well, can we cut this? No, we need to keep that, and back and forth. So my request to you is when you decide to set the tax rate, don't pick a rate just because, well, we need to cut it and look good. No, you need to pick and approve a tax rate that it takes for this city to run and grow. And that's what I want you guys to figure out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Dreiling. Are there any other comments? No.
James Evans, 6410 Buena Vista Drive, Greenville, Texas, 75402. I did not intend to speak at this, but again, I feel like I must. The call I had just a second ago and I stepped out for was from a longtime resident. Their spouse passed away, and they called to know one thing: have they set a tax rate yet? And this person is not frozen, they get no deductions. And again, they would be very appreciative when I told them I'll text them when the vote comes in tonight and see what y'all do on this proposal. But again, there's a lot of people that's trying to make it through too on their budgets at the House. I thank y'all. I know that you've done a lot of work. I realize that. And again, thank you for the 58 number. If it's 58, I'm going to be real happy, and I'll shake everybody's hand twice. And I have had my COVID shots. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Are there any
58
other,
forever, or
are
at
there
least for
any
this
other
year.
comments? Yes, Mr. Taylor.
Byron Taylor, 5106 Meadowbrook Drive. I'd like to echo what a former mayor said. You know, I remain silent on a lot of things, but sometimes I want to get up and say something that not everybody else is saying. But I'll give you an example. We're talking about cutting, and as if there's nothing ever to spend money on in Greenville, but there's plenty to do. When you come out of Pizza Hut on Highland Drive, and I do not know if that's one of the little strips that need to be redone. They all need to be redone all the way through there, but we have curbs in there that looks like pixie sticks. They literally look like they've been thrown on the edge of they're completely deteriorated, and this is what's coming out of one of our nicest landscape restaurants in the city. So I do get a little miffed when all we do is talk.
By the adoption of a tax rate of 0.589000, which is 58.9 cents, which is effectively a 3.75 increase in the tax rate.
Okay, is there a second? Second, please vote. Motion is second. And it passes unanimously. And I'd just like to make a statement about this. First of all, I want to just thank the city manager and her staff, all the department heads. This process starts in April, I think, and we get information. It seems like we're going through this pretty fast, but there's been a lot of work by a lot of people to get to this point. And with this budget, we've reduced the tax rate exactly 11 cents in the past 5 years. And historically, I think it's important for people to know that this council and previous councils have tried to focus on reducing taxes to the extent we can. Just as the past mayor said and Mr. Taylor said, trying to meet our needs, we're a growing city, etc. My first year on the council, the citizens passed a $12.6 million street bond that was to have increased our tax rate 6.5%. That year, the city council absorbed that entire tax rate in the budget. We didn't raise the tax rate that year. In 2018, we adopted a tax rate, which was the effective rate of minus 1/2 cent, which meant property tax owners would not see a year-over-year, dollar-over-dollar increase in city taxes. I don't know if that had ever been done before in the city of Greenville. It hadn't been done in the last 30 or 40 years. And so I think that is a statement about what we've tried to do. That prior year, Brent Money moved, and I seconded a motion to adopt the effective tax rate that was opposed by some of the very people who complain about our taxes today. So when someone says taxes are too high, it's very popular. It sounds good. Everybody likes to hear that, yes. But it's very subjective. And it's subjective because it's relative to what? Our comparison cities, our competitive cities. When you start doing that, we provide services that some cities don't have. We have a golf course. We have a library. We have an animal shelter. Some cities don't have that. So we provide other cities that they don't. So when you compare tax rates with various cities, I hate to use the term, but it's like apples and oranges. I like to look at the city as a business. And as speakers have said, we're a growing business. And there's one thing in business that everybody in business understands. When growth consumes cash, when you grow, you have to extend services, you have to extend your products and that sort of thing. Over half of our budget is public safety. And most of us in this room, I doubt if many of you have had an encounter with police department or the fire department in the last 5 or 10 years maybe. And yet, that's a service that's on demand. It's just like the demand that you meet with the electric service. When you need it, you really need it. And so it's subjective to decide what level of those services we need. People have raised the issue about employee taxes. City employees didn't get a raise last year. Inflation, as you know, is rampant in this country right now. I read somewhere that the inflation rate just in July was 5.6%. I was out of state a couple of weeks ago and I paid $4.24 for gasoline. And that impacts our employees just like it does our citizens. So I just want to say I'm very proud of what this council has done. We have certain members that work full-time. Just to put it in perspective, our packet today for this meeting was 300 pages. Most of these people look at that, they study it, they work at it. And I think I'm very proud of this city. I think we have a wonderful city manager and a wonderful staff. You wouldn't believe some of the things that are going on right now with the Board of Development. I wish we could talk about them. I hope Greg will be able to talk about them in the future. It's just unbelievable. Juice has continued to perform. They provide some of the lowest electric rates in our city. And let me tell you something, our city secretary is fantastic. You think secretary, well, she does a lot more than that. She keeps us coloring between the lines. So I just want to tell you, I'm very proud of the city. I'm very proud of what this council has done, the work they've done on this budget. I think it's about right, and I just wanted to say that tonight. So thank you all very much. The next thing we'll go to is item 7A, and it's consideration of an action on authorizing the issuance of and sale of bonds for the city of Greenville. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor, this is going to be the general obligation bonds for 2021, which will be for the road bond, and also for the expansion of Roy Warren, which were both bid out this morning, and I'll let Paul Jason with Specialized Public Finance come up and talk about how that went this morning.
Thanks, Mayor and council and staff. I've got some hard copies of the presentation. We'll start with the 7A agenda item on the GEO bonds. Also want to introduce your bond attorneys, Rob Collins and Sarah Gareth, that are here tonight. They've assisted with the documents and the election process. So if there's any questions, hard questions, legal-wise, ask both of them tonight. But I'll start with the GEO bonds. We bid out these issues at 9 o'clock this morning. We talked to a number of underwriting desks prior to doing that. We bid them out at the same time, and we're very happy with the results. We received 4 bids on the transaction for the GEO bonds. The winning bid was R.W. Baird. The rate was 2.32%. And that's a fixed rate for the life of this bond issue. That's a 30-year transaction. That's the lowest borrowing rate for a 30-year transaction for the city. There was a point that we were very happy to have a rate with a 3 on it. Now we have rates with 2s on it. So great if you're borrowing debt, not all that great for the investor that are buying these bonds. An example, in 2019 when we bid our transaction, we had a rate of 3.42. So significantly low borrowing costs for both these transactions. $54.5 million will be deposited at closing. As far as the debt service on those bonds, it's around $2.66 million is the average annual debt service for the GEO bonds. Page 3, if you have that in front of you, you see the 4 bidding firms, R.W. Baird, Hilltop, Wells Fargo, and Morgan Stanley. We appreciate all the work that these firms put in to bid on the transaction. We talk basis points in our business, and 1 basis point means around $73,000 in total debt service on a present value basis. So you can see how close some of these firms bid, between 2.32 and 2.47. Debt service structure is on page 4. You can see the ramp up of the debt service, and that's strategic to work around your current debt structure. And our debt increases to about $2.6 million in 2025. Page 5 is the sources and uses. The investors bid a premium, so our legal par amount of the debt is $53.515 million. That's below the not to exceed amount. They bid a premium on the transaction. That's proceeds that essentially go to the city. And then you can see the construction fund deposit of $54.5 million, which will be delivered at closing. The timeline is on page 6. A lot of work went in this, a lot of planning. We're here tonight very happy with the bids, but we're here for the council to consider the ordinance authorizing the GEO bonds, and then we'll plan to deliver on October 14th. Rob and his firm will do a lot of work between now and then to make sure we get everything approved through the Attorney General, and he's here tonight again to answer any questions. So far as the agenda item 7A, we'd recommend that the council approve and award the bonds to R.W. Baird. Happy to answer any questions about the GEO bonds.
Are there any questions? Okay. I'll open this up for public testimony then. Is there anyone like to speak on this issue? If not, I'll close public testimony. What's the pleasure of the council?
I would make a motion that, excuse me, for the city of Greenville to award $53,515,000 general obligation bonds to Robert W. Baird Company.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion is second, please vote. Okay, and it passes unanimously. We'll move right on to item 7B.
Thank you. 7B, it's the presentation that's labeled Certificates of Obligation, sale presentation. Again, I didn't mention this, but what's really important to get these low rates is the city's credit profile. And the city's been able to maintain its rating of AA minus throughout the pandemic. A lot of pressure was put on local governments throughout that, and that's a testament to the city and staff and maintaining the high reserve levels. And that's why we're able to get these kind of bids. These bonds were wrapped with insurance, so the city's rating is AA minus. The bidders all bid with insurance that's rated AA. That's factored into the cost and factored into the interest rate. So this transaction, as far as the COs, we also received 4 bids. 3 of the 4 firms were the same that bid on the GEO bonds. The rate was 2.2%. The reason why it was lower is you can see the average life of this transaction was a little shorter because we had, for example, the public safety and radio infrastructure that was amortized over 10 years. The Emergency Operations Center was 20 years, as well as the park. So that's why we had a different rate, and that's why it was lower, because the average life of the COs was slightly shorter than the GEO bonds. You can see the bidders, all the same bidders except Raymond James. Raymond James bid on this transaction. They came in last, but we do appreciate them bidding. R.W. Baird, again, was the winning bidder. And this is the firm we actually contacted. We contacted a number of firms, and we watched the calendar of who else is bidding. And they had recommended that we move the time because there was a lot of bids coming at 9:30 and 10 o'clock, so we moved it up, and they ended up winning the bid. So we're glad they came through for us at 2.2% on the rate for the COs. You can see the debt service on page 5 on the COs. It's structured that way because of the different amortization schedules of each of those projects that we're financing with these bonds. And we will provide subschedules for all these as well to the finance staff in summer. Page 5 is the sources and uses. You can see all the funds that are going to be delivered to the construction fund at closing for each of the projects that are financed with the COs. And again, we're asking council to consider the ordinance authorizing the issuance of the certificates of obligation, and then we would also recommend that council award the COs to R.W. Baird as well. Happy to entertain any questions.
Any questions?
And the delivery date was the same, is that correct?
Yes, October 14th.
Okay, what is the pleasure of the council?
I'll move to approve item 7B.
Okay, is there a second?
I second the motion.
Okay, second by Mr. Thomas. Please vote. And it passes unanimously, and thank you very much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you also. Okay, moving on to item 7C, consideration and action of an ordinance authorizing an emergency purchase of a new raw water line intake vertical pump.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm sure glad y'all passed that budget and those bond issues. All what we have tonight is, in our proposed budget, we had for a new pump at Tawakoni. The way prices are going right now, suppliers, the prices are changing constantly. And so what I'm asking tonight is the approval to go forward with this so I can issue the purchase order and lock the price in of this pump. We're seeing anywhere from 5, 10, 15% increases in suppliers in 15, 20-day period. So by issuing this purchase order, I can lock this price in. We're still looking at a 18-week or more delivery on it. But like I said, my recommendation is let's lock this price in and get it while we can get it.
Okay.
I'm asking for approval to issue that purchase order on that pump purchase.
Are there any questions for press? Not? What is the pleasure? Is there a motion?
I make a motion go ahead, Ben. Go ahead.
Here we go. I move that we approve item 7C.
Okay.
And I second that.
Motion is second. Please vote. Okay. Stay there, press. Item 7D, consideration action of an ordinance authorizing an emergency purchase of 30-inch PVC pipe.
Yes, sir. At the water treatment plant, we have a 2.1 million gallon clear well that had some problems with it, and TCEQ is on me to get that clear well into operation. And the only way to do this is this additional piping and valving to make that clear well work with the rest of the plant and the other clear wells we have. So what we're trying to do is get this done so we can get that clear well back in operation, which will help us get our plant going through the re-rating we're going to get to our 14 MGD. So this is a crucial component of that, and it needs to be done as fast as we can get it done.
Okay. Any questions?
This is a requirement from the state, is that not correct?
Yes, it is.
Mandated by the state?
Okay, any other questions? Motion?
I move to approve item 7D.
Second.
Motion is second. Please vote. Okay, and it passes unanimously. Item 7E, consideration and action on an ordinance authorizing an emergency purchase of 2 stormwater drain vertical turbine pumps. Press?
Yes, our water plant was originally constructed in a flood zone area. It is surrounded by dikes and levees to protect it. And we have a stormwater pumping system to keep the water out of the plant. Years ago, it had 2 pumps. One of the pumps died, it was not replaced. And about 2 weeks ago, our other pump died. So we have thrown in a temporary pump right now just to keep our plant from going underwater. So we desperately need to get these pumps on order as fast as we can. We're still looking at 12 to 14 week or longer delivery on them. But these are crucial to keeping that plant from flooding.
Any questions?
Just one, and just to be clear, these 3 items, by declaring an emergency, that is expediting our ability to get the corrections done.
Yes, sir,
correct?
that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And I think this is one example of infrastructure that just hasn't been maintained over the years, and we're placed in a position of catching up on these types of items that should have been taken care of years ago. So anyway, are there any other questions for the council or for press? If not, what is the pleasure of the council?
I make a motion for the emergency authorization for the purchase of the 2 pumps.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
Okay, Mr. Freeman seconds. Please vote. And it passes unanimously. Thank you, press.
Thank you all very much. I do appreciate it.
Yeah. Moving on to item Resolution 8A, consideration action on a resolution adopting a pistol enhancement transition program. Mr. Cole, how are you tonight?
Very well, sir. Mayor, council, manager, thank you for the opportunity to address you on this subject. The police department has, with the cooperation of the city manager, been able to create a project account that will cover the transition from our current police pistol that's issued to a new platform. The reason for that is the manufacturer has gone away from full support of the current pistol that we issue, so getting parts for repair and even holsters when we have a new officer in a timely manner has become a real issue. That's been caused by the military transitioning away from the pistol that's been in production since 1983. The pistol that we're suggesting to transition to is also a SIG, which is our pistol that we use now is a SIG. The model number, the P320RXP, is set up to do as a tool what we need to do, except the flashlight works in much the same manner as the pistol we do now. But it's also going to have an enhanced optic on it, which will drastically improve the performance of our shooters and their ability to shoot a small target at a distance. So accuracy will be improved. The item that I'm asking or requesting that you approve tonight is the outlay of the initial funds of $69,519.24 for the project to begin. This will be paid back through a buyback program. Officers are going to be allowed to purchase the duty weapon that they're carrying now. The funds from that buyback program, along with the sale of the ammunition that we have in inventory, because we no longer need 40 caliber ammunition if we go to a 9, along with the holsters that they'll also be allowed to buy back, will pay back to the city most of the cost of this transition. We will cover the remaining cost, which we're estimating right now at about $16,000, with seizure funds. So the good news is this transition, when the project is completed, will not cost the city much of a penny. Okay. And we'll have brand new pistols. Questions?
How many pistols are we talking about for that money?
I believe it was around 70. We buy a few more pistols because some of these pistols will be used in sim training when we do training for what we call RBT. They're outfitted to shoot a plastic bullet so that we use those weapons and we don't mess up our duty weapons. They're still capable of coming back into service if they're put back together. But we'll have plenty of pistols on the shelf for the anticipation as well as new officers in the next few years. And of course, every time we budget for an officer, we include the cost of a new pistol and all equipment.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Will.
Thank you.
What is the pleasure of the council regarding this issue? For a second, our motion?
I'll move that we approve the purchase of the equipment with the seizure funds.
Okay.
And I would second that motion.
Okay, so motion second, please vote. And it passes unanimously. Moving on to item 8B, boards and commissions, and we'll have to do these individually. Is there a motion to fill the vacancy on the Library Advisory Board? Place 7 on the Library Advisory Board.
I'll move that we approve the nomination of Angela Owens to the Library Advisory Board.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Please vote. And it passes unanimously. Her appointment does. Planning and Zoning Commission, is there a motion to appoint someone to place 9 of the Planning and Zoning Commission?
I'll move that we appoint Dr. Jack Emmons to place 9 of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
I'll second.
Okay, the motion is second. Please vote. And I know Dr. Emmons is here tonight. Congratulations. And it passes unanimously. Is there a motion on the Substandard Structure Rehabilitation Board, place 4?
I'll move that we nominate Lauren T. Saxton to the Substandard Instructions Rehabilitation Board, place 4.
Okay, is there a second?
I would second that motion.
Okay, there's a motion to second. Please vote. And his appointment is unanimous. And now we have 3 vacancies on the Tourism and Convention Board, place 1, place 2, place 3. Is there a motion to replace those people on the board?
I will move that we appoint Patty Donahoe to the Tourism and Convention Advisory Board, place 1. I move that we appoint Melissa Pendergraft to place 2, and Darla Henry to place 3.
And I would second those 3 motions.
Motion to second, please vote. Okay, and it passes unanimously. You have the consent calendar. Doctor, read the consent calendar, please.
City Council meeting minutes from August 24th, and an ordinance authorizing final payment to Tricon Services for drainage improvement projects.
Okay, is there a motion regarding this consent calendar?
Move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Second.
Okay, motion is second, please vote. And now we move on to city staff, city council reports, and there's a presentation in our materials from the Texas Department of Agriculture Section 3 presentation, and I think we need to acknowledge that has been inserted into our materials and that all of us have reviewed that. And that's all. This is not an action item. No vote is required, but it was there. I think it was presented prior to the meeting also. Okay. Okay, moving to city council discussion of proposed agenda items. Are there any proposed items that someone would like to bring up for the staff and for us to discuss in the future? Okay. If there are none, you have the board and commission minutes before you, and we have already met in executive session. There was no vote out of executive session, so this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for coming tonight.
The recipe for great food is simple. Make it fresh. Wings to Go in Greenville, where every order is a custom order made with fresh ingredients. Wings to Go, 7818 Wesley Street in Greenville. Simply great wings.
Need a part for the right price? Look for that red and blue sign. Henley Auto Supply at 1510 Stonewall. Over 800,000 CarQuest parts to choose from. Domestic, European, and Asian parts. Henley Auto Supply at 903-455-1969. 455-1969. Henley Auto Supply has the right part to keep your vehicle running. And backed by the best hometown service. Henley Auto Supply. Great people, great products, great prices. Henley Auto Supply and CarQuest.